Hold this rifle for the men, sweetheart. Sergeant Thorne's sneer cut through the shimmering desert air at Desert Peak Proving Grounds. And don't touch anything. That scope, you're not even worth a single round fired from it. A wave of snickers followed, aimed at Private Kira Vance. Thorne saw a girl with a clipboard. He never saw the quiet fire honed in the Colorado Front Range, the genius that defied logic. His arrogance, their scorn, was about to ignite a legend, shatter an impossible record, and change everything at Desert Peak forever. You're watching Veteran Biker. Let us know where you're tuning in from, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories of incredible triumph. The scorching Nevada sun beat down on the Desert Peak Proving Grounds, a crucible for the military's most advanced weaponry. Today, the highly anticipated XM-27 longshot rifle, a $40 million investment, was undergoing rigorous testing. The assembled unit of elite recruits and seasoned instructors stood rigid, their anticipation for the tests overshadowed by barely concealed disgust for Sergeant Thorne. Thorne, a man sculpted from arrogance, addressed Private Kira Vance, the sole woman in the advanced ballistics program, with a sneer. He saw her as an affront, a mere prop. "Hold this rifle for the men, sweetheart," he barked, his voice dripping venom. "And don't touch anything. That scope, you're not even worth a single round fired from it." His cronies snickered, their laughter a chorus of misogyny. Kira's cheeks burned, but her emerald eyes remained steady. Her silence was a defiant shield, fueling a quiet fire within. Thorne, blinded by prejudice, was about to have his world shattered by this unassuming girl from the Colorado mountains. Kira Vance's path to military legend was forged in the simple lessons of Aspen Creek, Colorado. Her father, a revered Wilderness Scout Corps operative, taught her to hunt before she could tie her shoes, instilling a profound understanding of the natural world. "The wind is alive, little one," he'd say. "You must listen to its song." By 12, she was hitting deer from distances that stunned grown men. Her bedroom wall, adorned with shooting medals and meticulous records, spoke of a nascent talent. She'd quietly endured dismissive just-a-girl comments, which only sharpened her resolve. High school was unremarkable. Kira's focus was the local shooting range. Mr. Sterling, a grizzled Vietnam veteran, recognized her undeniable gift, the kind of gift the military would kill for. It's not just about steady hands. It's about seeing the unseen. These words resonated, hinting at a larger purpose. When recruiters came, Kira was first in line. Her preliminary scores were off the charts, defying all civilian expectations. She didn't want just any ticket, she craved the crucible of military excellence. Basic training was a breeze for Kira. While others struggled, her shots consistently found the bullseye with unnerving calm. "Vance, have you done this before?" her drill sergeant asked disbelievingly. "No, sir," Kira replied. "Just taught right by my dad." Her extraordinary abilities quickly garnered attention within military command, earning her fast-tracking for specialized weapons training. Now, at 24, Private Kira Vance stood in the scorching heat of Desert Peak Proving Grounds, holding the XM-27 longshot. She understood its complex mechanisms better than its designers, yet Thorne treated her as a mere coat rack, a symbol of his ingrained prejudices. Little did anyone know that this day would mark the beginning of a legend born from disrespect, fueled by Thorne's toxic prejudice, and about to be written in the stunned silence of those who underestimated the quiet girl from Aspen Creek. Her steady hands held not just a rifle, but the power to shatter preconceptions. The clock was ticking not just on the test, but on Thorne's arrogant mediocrity. The Desert Peak Proving Grounds, a 50-square-mile expanse of desolate rock and sand, served as the ultimate testbed for military weaponry. Today's star attraction was the XM-27 Longshot, its sleek lines glinting under the harsh sun, a testament to billions in Rand-D. "Listen up, people!" Captain Roberts, a pragmatic man, addressed the assembled engineers, ballistics experts and marksmen. "This rifle represents a $40 million investment. We need clean, unequivocal data on its performance under these extreme desert conditions. Every metric, every variable accounted for with absolute precision." Sergeant Thorne stepped forward, his chest puffed out like a peacock displaying its plumage, his every movement designed to project an air of self-importance and absolute control. His uniform was immaculate, starched despite the heat, his boots shined to a mirror polish, a stark contrast to the gritty, dusty reality of the range. "I'll be handling primary test firing today," he announced, his voice booming with practiced authority, as if the desert itself would bend to his will. "Targets are set at progressive distances from 1,000 to 3,000 meters. We'll start conventional, then push the absolute limits of this machine." His eyes, however, settled on Kira with undisguised contempt, a cruel flicker in their depths. "Monroe," he corrected himself, then scowled, remembering her official designation. "Vance, you're here as an observer only. Your job is to hold equipment when told and stay out of the way. Clear?" His tone left no room for dissent, a thinly veiled threat embedded in every syllable, designed to put her firmly in her place. "Crystal clear, Sergeant," Kira responded, her voice steady, devoid of inflection, a calm counterpoint to his aggressive bluster. Her cheeks, however, burned with a renewed flush of indignation. She felt the prickle of tears, hot and unwanted, at the corners of her eyes, but she willed them back, holding them firmly behind a shield of unyielding composure. She would not give him the satisfaction, not now, not ever. She would absorb the humiliation, channel the anger, let it solidify into an iron resolve, and wait for her moment, a moment she instinctively knew would come, a moment of undeniable, irrefutable truth. The morning progressed with a meticulous series of test fires. The new rifle, indeed, performed admirably at conventional distances. Its advanced targeting system, its ergonomic design, its unparalleled stability, all contributed to consistent, tight groupings at 1,000, 1,200, even 1,500 meters. The technicians murmured approvingly, their clipboards filling with satisfying data points, their faces reflecting a growing optimism. Sergeant Thorne, for his part, reveled in the initial success, accepting the accolades as if they were solely due to his personal prowess rather than the rifle's inherent capabilities. He strutted between shots, his gait a theatrical display of unwarranted superiority, offering condescending tips to the technical team, making sure everyone knew he was the alpha, the undisputed master of this domain. His ego swelled, fed by the early triumphs, but as the targets moved beyond 2,000, then 2,250 meters, a new, insidious enemy emerged, the very environment they were testing in, now revealing its true, formidable nature. The intense desert heat, rising in shimmering waves from the baked earth, created complex mirage effects that danced and swayed, distorting the air like invisible fluid currents. The rifle's sophisticated computer-assisted scope, designed to compensate for known atmospheric variables, began to falter, its intricate algorithms struggling to make sense of the chaotic light refraction, generating wildly inaccurate readouts. "Damn it!" Thorne cursed, slamming his fist on the ground beside the rifle with a frustrated roar after his third consecutive miss at 2,250 meters. The target, a small, barely visible panel, remained stubbornly, defiantly intact, mocking his efforts. The atmospheric distortion is playing havoc with the targeting system. It's impossible to get a clean read. This damn desert is actively fighting against us. His previous swagger evaporated, replaced by a growing, visible frustration that quickly escalated into outright fury. His face, once smug, was now contorted in a mask of impotent rage. Captain Roberts, observing from behind a set of flickering technical readouts, frowned at his clipboard. A subtle line of worry etched itself deeper between his brows. "We need at least one confirmed hit at maximum range to complete today's dataset, Sergeant. The brass wants definitive results. They demand proof of concept." He rubbed his chin, a gesture of deep concern. The mission was clear: prove the XM-27's capabilities under extreme conditions. And they were failing. The multi-million-dollar investment hung in the balance, while the men, a huddled mass of specialized expertise, converged around technical readouts, muttering desperate adjustment calculations and whispering frustrated laments about faulty algorithms and impossible atmospheric models. Kira stood quietly to the side. Her presence to them was negligible, merely a human equipment stand as Thorne had decreed, an unimportant background figure. But her mind, a finely tuned instrument honed since childhood, was anything but idle. Her emerald eyes, missing nothing, absorbed every nuance. She quietly observed the subtle dance of the wind flags, the lazy sway of the heat waves, the slight dust. Devils that formed and dissipated across the range like fleeting ghosts, each a transient story of air pressure and thermal shifts. Her mind, with a fluidity that bypassed conscious effort, calculated windage adjustments and bullet drop compensations automatically, not from textbooks, but from living, breathing experience in the untamed Colorado Front Range. Her father's voice, a steady whisper in her memory, echoed, "You have to see the wind, little one, not just feel it. It sings a song for those who know how to listen." The desert, to Kira, was speaking, and she was listening intently. The afternoon sun, an angry, molten disk in the vast Nevada sky, beat down mercilessly. It bleached the desert landscape, transforming the distant peaks into ghostly, shimmering cutouts against the relentless glare. The air, thick with dust and heat, was a tangible, oppressive force, pressing down on the assembled testing team at Desert Peak Proving Grounds. Their earlier confidence had long evaporated, replaced by a palpable sense of exhaustion and quiet desperation. The weight of their failure hung heavy, a shroud over the firing line. Target Bravo 7, positioned at an audacious 2,950 meters, remained mockingly intact. Through high-powered optics, It appeared as nothing more than a faint, almost invisible shimmer, a tiny reflective panel mocking their collective expertise. It represented the absolute maximum effective range of the new XM-27 rifle, a target designed to push the boundaries of known ballistics. Yet after multiple attempts, countless adjustments and mounting frustration, it stood unblemished, a stark monument to their inability. "Final attempt before we pack it in, people," Captain Roberts announced, his voice raspy, a weary edge in his tone as he checked his watch. The command from headquarters, the brass, wanted results today, definitive data that justified the multi-million-dollar investment. And they had nothing. Thorne's last 5 shots, each one a testament to his escalating fury, had all missed, widening the chasm of his frustration into a full-blown chasm of despair. His swagger, once so pronounced, had deflated, leaving behind a brittle shell of arrogance. He wiped sweat from his brow with a trembling hand, his breathing heavy, ragged. The technical team, a cluster of brilliant minds now reduced to an anxious huddle, hovered around him. Their murmurs, once filled with confident suggestions, were now timid, easily met with a stream of muttered profanities from Thorne. The targeting algorithm needs recalibration. One technician, a young woman with a nervous tremor in her voice, suggested timidly, pointing to a flickering readout. "What it needs," another whispered, just out of Thorne's earshot, his eyes rolling, "is a shooter who isn't getting heat stroke and a massive ego hemorrhage." Kira stood quietly to the side, clipboard in hand, meticulously recording data as instructed. Her outward composure was a stark contrast to the chaotic energy swirling around Thorne, but inside, her mind raced, processing data far beyond what her pen transcribed. Her emerald eyes, sharp and discerning, kept darting between the distant target area, the telltale fluttering of the wind flags, and the hypnotic, distorting waves of mirage visible through the spotting scope. Something was off in their calculations, something fundamental, a variable they simply weren't seeing, let alone accounting for. Her father's voice, a steady whisper in her memory, echoed, "You have to see the wind, little one, not just feel it. It sings a song for those who know how to listen." Thorne fired again. The rifle's report cracked across the range, a sound of frustrated finality. Another miss. Son of a... He cut himself off abruptly, his jaw clenching, acutely aware of Captain Roberts's presence. "The scope must be defective. It's impossible. This damn thing is sabotaging me," he growled, clutching the rifle as if it were to blame. The technical lead, a seasoned engineer, shook his head, a weary sigh escaping him. "The scope is operating within parameters, Sergeant. The environmental factors are just at the extreme edge of its compensation abilities. It's pushing beyond what the tech can calculate reliably. The data indicates an atmospheric anomaly, not equipment malfunction." "One more try," Captain Roberts said firmly, his voice cutting through the rising tide of despair. "Then we document the current limitations and recalibrate tomorrow. This is a bust for today. We'll come back at dawn when the heat isn't so oppressive." The team began the slow, demoralizing process of packing down equipment, disappointment evident in their slumped shoulders and quiet murmuring. Thorne, defeated, handed the rifle to a technician who began securing it in its specialized case, his movements slow, resigned, stripped of all bravado. As their failure hung heavy in the air, something in Kira snapped. All day she'd endured Thorne's contempt, his belittling remarks, and his assumption that her gender made her incapable of the skill she'd mastered since childhood. His cruelty, his public humiliation, fueled a quiet fury within her. Ignoring career-ending insubordination, she stepped forward. "Captain Roberts, sir. Request permission to attempt one shot." The team froze. Thorne, disbelieving, thought he'd broken her. "Excuse me, Private?" Roberts asked, surprised. "One shot, sir," Kira reiterated, her eyes locked on the distant target. Thorne's cruel laugh cut through the air. "Are you serious, Private Vance? You think your little hunting trips prepared you for what 5 Special Forces shooters and a $40 million rifle couldn't do?" Kira met his gaze, her voice quiet but resolute. "One shot. If I miss, I'll accept any disciplinary action and leave Desert Peak immediately." Dr. Winters, a lead ballistics expert, stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overriding protocol. "Sir, from a research perspective, additional data can't hurt. A successful shot would be invaluable. Perhaps a different human element is needed." Captain Roberts weighed the insubordination against the desperate need for results. He saw in Kira a quiet confidence that was either madness or genius. With a sigh, he shrugged. "All right, Vance. One shot. Make it count. You have the stage." Thorne sneered. "Let's see little Miss Aspen Creek embarrass herself publicly." The technician, after a brief hesitation, his hands trembling slightly, handed the rifle to Kira. As her fingers closed around the cold metal, it felt perfectly balanced in her hands, like an extension of her own body, a familiar comfort. She approached the firing position with methodical calm, her movements deliberate, precise, almost ritualistic. Unlike the previous shooters, who immediately dropped down behind the rifle, eager to get their shot off, Kira spent nearly a full minute just observing the range. Her initial act was not to aim but to perceive. She licked her finger and held it up, not just feeling the breeze, but discerning its subtle, complex currents. She didn't just look at the mirage, she studied its dance, seeing how the heat waves bent light differently at varying heights, creating invisible streams of warmer and cooler air, like unseen serpents writhing in the shimmering heat. She noted how the dust devils formed and dissipated across the valley floor, their fleeting movements telling a silent, intricate story of air pressure and thermal shifts. Her father's words echoed, clear as a bell. "The desert breathes, Kira. You must learn its breath. It sings a song for those who know how to listen. Today, Private!" Thorne called out impatiently, his voice dripping with condescension, an attempt to shatter the quiet intensity of her focus. Kira ignored him, her concentration absolute, a force field around her, impervious to his petty tyranny. She made 3 small, almost imperceptible adjustments to the rifle's scope, precise clicks that would be meaningless to anyone but her, tiny calibrations based on unseen forces. Then, with a quiet decisiveness that startled the observers, she reached for the control panel. Instead of activating any of the advanced computer-assisted features, she deliberately disengaged the computer assistance entirely. She was going old school, pure instinct, pure skill, pure human perception against the chaos of nature. "What's she doing?" one technician whispered to another, his eyes wide, a dawning realization in his voice. "She's disabled all the advanced features, the predictive algorithms, the environmental compensation, everything. She's going fully manual." "Going old school," the other replied, a newfound interest dawning in his eyes, a glimmer of respect for her audacity. relying purely on her own reading. Kira's breathing slowed, deepening, becoming a rhythmic cadence, a steadying anchor in the vast empty silence. Her heartbeat became a calm, deliberate thump against her ribs, a drumbeat of absolute focus. The world around her faded away, shrinking until only she, the rifle, and the distant, shimmering target existed. Thorne, Captain Roberts, the pressure, the $40 million investment, all became irrelevant noise, distant echoes in her singular world. It was just like hunting with her father in the Colorado Front Range, where success wasn't about technology or accolades, but about patience, perception, and a deep, intuitive understanding of nature's subtle cues. She tracked the subtle movements of air and heat, her senses acutely aware, waiting for the perfect moment, that brief, fleeting window, when all conditions aligned, when the chaotic elements of the desert would briefly coalesce into a single, predictable line, almost like liquid glass. She inhaled slowly, held it, then released half her breath, her finger finding the precise pressure point on the trigger, the culmination of years of practice, of instinct honed to perfection. And squeezed. The rifle's report, sharp and concussive, echoed across the vast empty desert, a lonely sound that hung in the air, pregnant with anticipation. For 3 agonizing seconds, nothing happened. The desert held its breath. Then, through the high-powered spotting scope, a small, impossible puff of dust erupted from exactly where target. Bravo 7 stood, a silent explosion of victory against the indifferent landscape, a punctuation mark in the stunned silence. "Holy expletive," someone whispered. The expletive, a raw, guttural sound of pure disbelief, barely escaping his lips. The range computer connected to the target sensors beeped loudly, its screen flashing a triumphant green. Target hit confirmation. 2,950 meters, Dr. Winters read aloud, his voice tinged with utter, profound disbelief, a tremor running through him. First round hit. No computer assistance. Impossible. A stunned, absolute silence fell over the range, even deeper and heavier than before. All eyes turned to Kira, who calmly safed the weapon, her movements unhurried, as if what she had just done was merely routine, a simple task completed. She then stood up, her posture straight, her gaze still fixed on the distant target, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips, a quiet triumph shining in her eyes. Captain Roberts was the first to break the silence, his voice a low, incredulous whisper. "How? How did you do that, Private? What did you see?" Before she could answer, the radio crackled to life. A disembodied voice cutting through the heavy air, demanding confirmation. Range control to testing Group Alpha. Confirm hit on target Bravo 7. Repeat. Confirm hit. Target sensors show complete destruction. Unbelievable. The voice at range control sounded as utterly astounded as those standing on the ground. Sergeant Thorne's face had drained of all color, turning a sickly ashen gray. His mouth opened and closed, a fish gasping for air, but no words came out. His eyes, wide with a mixture of terror and utter humiliation, darted between the distant, impossible target and Kira, who stood calmly, radiating an aura of quiet power. His world, built on a foundation of prejudice and inflated ego, had just imploded, shattered by the quiet girl he had so arrogantly dismissed. The technical team, a moment ago lost in despair, was already crowding around Kira, peppering her with excited questions about her methodology, their clipboards forgotten, their faces alight with scientific curiosity. "I just read the wind," she said simply, her voice still calm, almost shy, "and I accounted for the spiraling thermal effect in the valley. The computer can't see it, but a human eye can. My father taught me to listen to the desert's song, to see its invisible currents." Captain Roberts was already on his satellite phone, speaking rapidly to someone in command, his voice barely containing a surge of adrenaline. "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but we have a situation here you need to know about immediately. We just achieved a confirmed hit at 2,950 meters. First round, no computer assistance. By Private Kira Vance. It was utterly breathtaking, sir." Dr. Winters, his eyes wide with a newfound respect that bordered on awe, approached Kira, his hand hovering as if to touch her, then thought better of it. "Private Vance, that shot shouldn't have been possible. Not with current technology, not with current training protocols. What you just did defies statistical probability, defies all known models. It's beyond anything we've ever calculated." Kira allowed herself the smallest of smiles, a private victory, a silent nod to her father's legacy. "Not if you grew up shooting in the Colorado mountain valleys, sir. Wind does funny things between peaks. You learn to see it, or you go home hungry. Survival teaches you things science can't always explain." As the team bustled around her, gathering data, taking statements, a flurry of renewed energy replacing their earlier despondency, Kira caught Thorne's eye across the range. The sergeant stood alone, isolated, his earlier bravado replaced by something that looked remarkably like primal fear. He realized, perhaps for the first time in his arrogant life, that he had just been publicly outperformed, not by another man, not by another special forces operator with years of combat experience, but by the very woman he'd spent all day belittling, mocking, and dehumanizing. And worse, everyone had witnessed it. The silent, burning humiliation on his face was a victory far sweeter than any medal, a poetic justice delivered by a single, impossible shot. The wind, it seemed, had a way of delivering not just bullets, but also a stark, undeniable form of justice. Word spread through Desert Peak proving grounds like wildfire, an uncontrollable blaze of disbelief and awe that swept through every barrack, every mess hall, every dusty training range. Whispers turned into murmurs, murmurs into animated conversations, each retelling of Private Kira Vance's impossible shot, embellished with new layers of legend, growing larger and more fantastical with every telling. The numbers alone defied belief. 2,950 meters, first round hit, no computer assistance. It was a statistical impossibility, a human feat that transcended technology, yet it had happened, witnessed by too many to be denied. By morning, the story, now an almost mythical narrative, had reached command headquarters, echoing through the sterile, high-tech corridors of power. The very foundations of what was considered possible in long-range precision shooting began to tremble, challenged by the raw, untamed talent of a private soldier. Kira, utterly oblivious to the seismic shift her single shot had caused in the military establishment, sat alone in the mess hall the following day. The clatter of trays, the drone of conversations, all seemed distant, muffled. She was acutely aware of the stares and whispers that followed her every movement, the sudden, intense focus of hundreds of eyes that had, just yesterday, looked straight through her. Overnight, she had gone from invisible to infamous, from a mere clipboard holder to the epicenter of a swirling controversy, a living legend in the making. She focused on her breakfast, a plate of tasteless eggs and rubbery bacon, trying to ignore the overwhelming attention, the weight of 1,000 unspoken questions pressing down on her. A shadow fell across her tray, cutting off the harsh glare of the fluorescent lights. Looking up, Kira found Captain Robert standing there, his expression unreadable, a mixture of awe and something akin to a grim amusement. Beside him stood a stone-faced colonel she didn't recognize, a man whose bearing radiated an unshakable authority and whose eyes, sharp and intelligent, seemed to bore into her. He was lean with silvering temples and an aura of quiet, understated power that commanded instant respect. "Private Vance," Captain Roberts said formally, his voice carrying an uncharacteristic weight, devoid of his usual easygoing tone. "This is Colonel Sterling, Director of Advanced Weapons Development for the Army Marksmanship Unit. He flew in this morning on a priority transport, specifically to see you." Kira immediately jumped to her feet, her chair scraping against the floor, and executed a crisp practice salute. "Sir!" Her posture was ramrod straight, her gaze unwavering. "At ease, Private," Colonel Sterling said, his voice deep and measured, studying her with an intense, almost unsettling interest that seemed to strip away all pretense. He gestured to the empty seats across from her. "Mind if we join you? There's quite a bit to discuss." Kira swallowed, a lump forming in her throat. "No, sir. Of course not, sir. Please." They sat across from her, their presence commanding, filling the small table with an unspoken gravitas. Colonel Sterling placed a thick folder, her personnel file, on the table between them. The file seemed to hum with the weight of its newly added, unprecedented entries, a testament to a career now irrevocably altered. "I've reviewed the data from yesterday," he said without preamble, his gaze unwavering, direct, every single detail, "and I've spoken with several witnesses, including Dr. Winters and Captain Roberts." His eyes narrowed slightly, a hint of steel in their depths. "I have one question, Private Vance. Was that shot luck?" Kira met his gaze directly, her voice clear and steady, devoid of any hesitation or false modesty. "No, sir, it was not. Could you repeat it?" "Yes, sir," she replied, her conviction absolute, her voice unwavering. "Given similar conditions, I am confident I could." Colonel Sterling nodded slowly, a thoughtful, almost contemplative expression on his face. He leaned back in his chair, his fingers drumming lightly on the table, a subtle sign of his deep contemplation. "The shot you made yesterday," he continued, his voice now lower, more significant, almost reverent, "broke the standing record for first-round hit precision on our ranges. The previous record was held by Master Sergeant James Harding, a three-tour combat veteran and Olympic alternate. A legend in the AMU, a man whose name is synonymous with precision." Kira absorbed this information in silence, a strange mixture of humility and quiet triumph stirring within her. She hadn't aimed for records, only for the truth of the shot. "The computer analysis suggests what you did should have been technically impossible without advanced computational assistance," Sterling continued, his eyes piercing, trying to gauge the depth of her understanding. "Yet you deliberately disabled those very systems before taking the shot. Why did you make that decision, Private?" "They were overcompensating, sir," Kira explained, choosing her words carefully, articulating a complex intuitive process into logical, digestible terms. The algorithms are designed for standard atmospheric conditions. They can compensate for known variables: wind speed, temperature, humidity, and elevation. But they can't detect complex air current patterns that create what my father called wind rivers, streams of air moving at different speeds and directions at different elevations. They average them out, which leads to cumulative error. Colonel Sterling exchanged a swift glance with Captain Roberts, a flicker of profound surprise in Roberts's eyes. Sterling then leaned back again, clearly impressed, a subtle nod of understanding passing between them. "And how exactly did you know about this thermal vortex effect or these wind rivers, Private?" he pressed, genuine curiosity now evident in his tone. "I observed it, sir," Kira responded, her gaze drifting to the mess hall window, as if seeing the desert beyond, envisioning the phenomena. "It's similar to conditions in mountain valleys back home in Aspen Creek, Colorado. You can see it in how the heat distorts light at different elevations, how dust motes dance in unseen currents, how the leaves of a single bush tremble in varying directions. My father taught me to read the air, to listen to the desert's song, to see beyond what the instruments tell you." Sterling's brow furrowed slightly, a thoughtful, almost astonished expression. "Private, I've been shooting for 30 years, including 2 Olympic trials. I've never heard anyone describe reading mirage patterns that way. It's not in any manual. It's unique, almost an art form." A commotion at the mess hall entrance drew their attention. Sergeant Thorne, his chest still puffed out despite yesterday's humiliating defeat, his face still a mottled red of suppressed fury, had arrived with his usual entourage of sycophantic cronies. They laughed too loudly, their conversation forced, as they made their way towards a table, conspicuously avoiding eye contact with the officers. But Thorne stopped short, his confident stride faltering, his face contorting into a mask of pure indignation, when his eyes locked onto Kira sitting calmly with 2 high-ranking officers. He knew his reputation was hanging by a thread, and he intended to fight. "Ah, I believe you've created quite a situation, Private," Colonel Sterling noted, his gaze following Kira's to Thorne. A hint of dry amusement touched Sterling's lips, a subtle premonition of the confrontation to come. "Sergeant Thorne has filed a complaint, an official one." Kira's stomach dropped, a cold knot forming in her gut. She had known it was coming, but hearing it confirmed still sent a jolt of anxiety through her. "A complaint, sir?" she asked quietly, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes." Sterling's voice held no judgment, only a detached statement of fact, a clinical dissection of a problem. "He claims you violated protocol by interfering with a controlled test environment, that your actions were insubordinate and endangered the project's integrity. He also claims you somehow sabotaged the rifle's performance for his shots." Captain Roberts, beside Kira, couldn't hide his disgust, a subtle roll of his eyes. "It's nonsense, of course, sir," he muttered under his breath. "He's just trying desperately to save face. It's a pathetic attempt to deflect." "What happens now, sir?" Kira asked, her voice barely a whisper, her eyes still on Thorne, who was now glaring at her with undisguised venom, a burning hatred in his eyes. Colonel Sterling smiled for the first time, a slow, predatory grin that held a chilling promise. Now we deal with Sergeant Thorne's fragile ego and his numerous violations of conduct. He stood up, his posture commanding, radiating an aura of unwavering authority. "Captain Roberts, please escort Private Vance to Conference Room Alpha. There are some people from Evergreen Training Center, Alabama, who are very eager to meet her." As they walked through the mess hall, the atmosphere seemed to crackle with silent anticipation. Thorn, ever the bully, ever desperate to reassert his dominance, deliberately stepped into their path, attempting to block their way, his posture rigid, his face a mask of self-righteous fury. "Sir!" he addressed Colonel Sterling, completely ignoring Kira, as if she were a ghost, an inconvenient shadow. "I wasn't aware you'd be on base today. I prepared a full report on yesterday's testing irregularities. A thorough accounting, sir, documenting the breach. Have you now?" Sterling's voice turned cold, chillingly polite, a stark contrast to Thorn's bluster, a frost that promised a deep freeze. "That's very proactive of you, Sergeant. Very thorough." "Yes, sir." Thorn puffed out his chest, momentarily emboldened by Sterling's seemingly mild tone, mistaking politeness for approval. The unauthorized firing of experimental hardware by unqualified personnel is a serious breach of protocol, a dangerous precedent for military discipline, sir. It undermines our entire chain of command and the integrity of our testing procedures. Sterling cut him off, his voice suddenly hard as granite, an unyielding steel edge emerging that made Thorn flinch, his bluster dying in his throat. "Sergeant Thorn, do you know who I am?" Thorn blinked in confusion, his bluster momentarily deflated, his eyes darting. "Yes, sir. You're the Director of Advanced Weapons Development, and do you know why I flew here at 0400 this morning on a priority transport?" Sterling's voice was low, but it resonated with an authority that silenced the entire mess hall, making every ear strain to hear the conversation, sensing the impending explosion, the inevitable fall. "I assumed it was about the incident, sir," Thorn stammered, a flicker of unease, then outright fear entering his eyes as he recognized the trap. "Correct." Sterling's gaze was like a laser beam, stripping away Thorn's facade, exposing the trembling insecurity beneath. "I'm here because Private Vance just accomplished what your entire team, with all your combined experience and expertise, failed to do after multiple attempts. She demonstrated a level of marksmanship skill that, quite frankly, makes your own abilities look rudimentary by comparison. She exposed your limitations, Thorn, not just your technical ones, but your personal ones." Thorn's face flushed a deep, mottled red, a hideous mask of humiliation and fury. His mouth opened and closed uselessly, a fish gasping for air, desperately searching for words that would not come. "But sir, she what, Sergeant?" Sterling's voice was a whip crack, cutting off his pathetic stammering. "She made you look bad? She proved that your assessment of her abilities was not just wrong, but embarrassingly so. She demonstrated that your constant belittling of her was based on nothing but your own prejudice, your own toxic insecurities, your own pathetic need to dominate those you perceive as weaker." Sterling's words were precise, surgical, dissecting Thorn's character with brutal, unflinching honesty. "Report to my office at 0900, Sergeant," Sterling concluded coldly, his voice devoid of any further emotion, a final chilling pronouncement. "We'll discuss your complaint in detail, along with the multiple violations of the conduct code I personally witnessed yesterday via the range cameras. I'll also be reviewing your entire service record for any patterns of similar behavior." "Dismissed." Thorne stood frozen for a moment, his posture rigid, humiliation burning him from the inside out, the weight of a public, undeniable defeat crushing him. Then, military discipline reasserted itself, a thin veneer over his seething fury. He executed a stiff, almost robotic salute, snapped to a perfect about-face, and marched away, radiating pure, unadulterated rage with every step. His cronies, suddenly finding urgent reasons to be elsewhere, quickly dispersed, melting into the crowd, leaving him utterly alone in the now silent mess hall, his self-importance shattered beyond repair. The air cleared, almost tangibly, of his noxious, oppressive presence. As Captain Roberts and Kira continued toward the conference room, Roberts couldn't hide his broad, triumphant smile. "I've waited 3 years to see someone put Thorne in his place like that, Private Vance. Thank you, truly. You have no idea the morale boost you just gave this entire facility. Is he always like that?" Kira asked, a small, wry smile touching her lips, a mixture of exhaustion and a strange, profound satisfaction. Worse, Roberts chuckled, a genuine, deep, satisfied laugh escaping him. He's been riding on his special forces reputation for years, intimidating everyone around him, poisoning morale, making life miserable for anyone who didn't fit his narrow worldview. But yesterday, Roberts actually chuckled again, a deep, satisfied sound that rumbled in his chest. Yesterday, Private, you broke more than just a shooting record. You broke Sergeant Thorne. You shattered his little kingdom of fear. They reached the conference room door. Inside, Kira could see several high-ranking officers and civilian specialists gathered around a table, their faces serious, expectant, illuminated by the glow of laptop screens. They had folders open, charts projected, and what appeared to be Kira's entire personnel file spread out before them, its pages already dog-eared from intense scrutiny. "They've been reviewing your personnel file all morning," Captain Roberts whispered, a note of awe in his voice, as if speaking of a mythical creature. "Everything from your entrance exams to your firearms qualifications, every single detail, every score, every commendation. They're utterly fascinated." "Why, sir?" Kira asked, a tremor of apprehension running through her, the weight of their gaze almost physical. Colonel Sterling, who had caught up to them, answered from behind, his voice softer now, almost warm, filled with a profound respect. "Because, Private Vance," his voice was lower, more intimate, "the Army Marksmanship Unit doesn't often find natural talents of your caliber. What you did yesterday wasn't just impressive, it was historic. It was a glimpse into the future of precision marksmanship, a human capability that transcends current technology. You are, quite simply, a phenomenon." As they entered the room, Kira felt her world shifting beneath her feet, a profound, irreversible change. The casual cruelty, the dismissive slights, the constant uphill battle against entrenched prejudice all seemed to recede, replaced by a new, exhilarating reality. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing for certain. Sergeant Thorne would never again dismiss her as just the girl with the clipboard. His reign of petty tyranny was over, his small kingdom shattered. And hers, it seemed, was just beginning on a stage far grander and more demanding than she could ever have imagined. The door closed behind them, sealing her fate, ushering her into a future she could barely comprehend, a future defined not by what she was told she could not do, but by what she had proven, undeniably, she could. The military transport plane touched down at Evergreen Training Center, Alabama with a gentle bump, the dull thud of its tires meeting the tarmac vibrating through the cabin. As Kira descended the stairs onto the tarmac, the blast of Georgia humidity hit her like a thick, wet blanket, a stark, suffocating contrast to the dry, searing heat of the Nevada desert she had just left. The air was heavy, humid, clinging to her fatigues, a new sensory challenge that subtly hinted at the different world she was stepping into. It hummed with the energy of a vast, complex military installation, a distinct rhythm after the isolated intensity of Desert Peak. A staff sergeant, trim and efficient, waited beside a modest military SUV, holding a sign with her name, Vance K. His uniform was pristine, his posture ramrod straight. "Private Vance," he called as she approached, his voice crisp, holding a distinct note of professional curiosity. "Staff Sergeant Wilson, I'll be taking you to the AMU facilities." "Word of your shot at Desert Peak has already made the rounds here, Private. 2,950 meters. First attempt. No computer assistance. They say it was impossible." He paused, a short, sharp whistle escaping his lips. "That's true?" "Yes, Sergeant," Kira replied simply, her voice as calm and steady as ever, a quiet counterpoint to his barely concealed awe. He whistled again, this time with a hint of genuine respect mixed with a warning. "You're walking into a hornet's nest of ego and competition, Private Vance. Fair warning, not everyone's going to welcome you with open arms. They don't like outsiders, especially ones who make their own legends before setting foot on these grounds. This place is built on reputations, slowly earned, carefully guarded. Yours just landed like a meteor." "I'm used to that, Sergeant," Kira said, a hint of weariness in her tone, but also a quiet resolve. She had, after all, just left Sergeant Thorne's particular brand of welcome, and she knew the nature of the challenges ahead. Wilson nodded, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "I bet you are. Just be ready. These guys are good. Real good." The Army Marksmanship Unit's compound was a world unto itself, a sprawling complex separate from the main areas of Evergreen Training Center. It was set back in a densely wooded area, hidden amidst tall pines and oaks, with its own meticulously maintained ranges, specialized training facilities, and state-of-the-art simulation centers. As their SUV pulled up, Kira noticed a group of soldiers, all men, all wearing the distinctive badges that marked them as competition shooters, AMU veterans, standing by the entrance. Their gazes, sharp and assessing, tracked her arrival with undisguised curiosity, a mixture of skepticism, challenge, and a reluctant, simmering respect. These were the best, the elite, and they were sizing her up, preparing for the inevitable. "Your audience awaits, Private," Wilson muttered dryly as he parked the vehicle. Inside, Kira was led directly to a conference room. 3 officers, all possessing an air of quiet authority and keen intellect, waited for her. The oldest, a lean colonel with sharp, piercing eyes that seemed to take in every detail, stepped forward. "Private Vance, I'm Colonel Hayes, commander of the Army Marksmanship Unit. This is Major Peterson and Captain Grant, our head coaches for long-range precision disciplines." Kira executed a crisp salute, her movements precise, confident. "Private Vance reporting as ordered, sir." "At ease, Private," Colonel Hayes said, his voice firm but not unkind, gesturing to a chair. "Let's cut to the chase. Your shot at Desert Peak has created quite a stir. Some say it was impossible, others say it was luck. We need to know which it is, definitely. What do you say? Kira met his gaze without hesitation, her voice clear and unwavering, a testament to her unshakable inner conviction. I say I can do it again, sir. The three officers exchanged glances. Major Peterson, a burly man with a thoughtful expression, leaned forward, a subtle smile playing on his lips. Bold claim, Private. Our qualification course starts tomorrow, a grueling process that will test every fiber of your being, but I'm curious. How would you feel about a little demonstration this afternoon? Just a preliminary showing of that impossible capability, unofficial, just for us. I'm ready whenever you are, sir, Kira replied, a spark igniting in her emerald eyes. The challenge was familiar. Captain Grant, a younger officer with a shrewd, intelligent gaze, smiled for the first time. I like her already, Colonel. 2 hours later, Kira found herself on the AMU's long-range precision course. Word had spread with astonishing speed, and a sizable crowd of AMU shooters and staff had gathered to watch, their faces a mixture of anticipation and thinly veiled skepticism. The target was set at 1,500 meters, a challenging distance certainly, but well within the capabilities of elite marksmen trained at this level. This wasn't a world record attempt, but a test of fundamental, consistent skill. Standard qualification drill, Major Peterson explained, his voice booming across the range. 5 shots, best grouping wins. You'll be shooting against Master Sergeant Ryder, our current long-range champion. He's held the title for 2 years running. Ryder stepped forward, a tall, powerfully built man whose physique spoke of years of rigorous training. His confident bearing, the easy way he held himself, marked him as someone utterly accustomed to being the best. His eyes, sharp and assessing, raked over Kira, a flicker of thinly veiled skepticism in their depths, mixed with a hint of professional curiosity. Ladies first, he said with exaggerated politeness, his tone laced with a subtle challenge, a hint of condescension that Kira was all too familiar with. Kira ignored the bait. Her focus narrowed, her world shrinking to the rifle, the range, and the distant target. She took her position behind the rifle, a familiar M110 SAAs, rather than the experimental model from Desert Peak. It felt solid, reliable, a trusted friend in her hands. She took a moment, just as she always did, not to aim, but to perceive. She felt the subtle breeze, noted how it shifted direction as it moved through the pines bordering the range, and the way the light played on the distant target. She recalled her father's lessons, feeling the unseen currents, listening to the wind's song. Her first shot cracked, then her second, third, fourth, and fifth, each one a testament to her unwavering precision. When she stood up, the murmurings from the watching crowd, a rising tide of impressed whispers, told her she'd made an impression. 5 shots, 5 hits, all within a 2-inch grouping at 1,500 meters. A truly exceptional performance that drew a collective gasp from the observers. Ryder's confident swagger seemed to diminish a fraction as he took his turn. He settled behind the rifle, his movements practiced, efficient. His first 4 shots matched Kira's performance, tight and precise. As he prepared for his final shot, a sudden, insidious gust of wind swept across the range, twisting and swirling, the kind of unpredictable variable that separated good shooters from truly great ones. It was a subtle, almost imperceptible shift to the untrained eye, but it was there. Ryder hesitated, recalculated, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. He fired. His 5th shot landed just outside his previous grouping, an inch or two wider, enough to break his perfect string. "Private Vance wins the round," Major Peterson announced, unable to hide his surprise, a genuine smile now spreading across his face. The outcome was clear. Ryder stood up, his expression unreadable, a flicker of frustration in his eyes. He walked over to Kira, extending his hand, a hint of grudging respect already present. "Lucky wind," he said, but his voice lacked conviction, the usual dismissiveness absent. "Just a lucky crosswind, that's all." Kira, unable to help herself, offered a quiet correction. That crosswind was visible in the tree line 30 seconds before it hit the range. "Sergeant," the leaves on the east side were already moving differently, warning of the shift. Ryder stared at her, then turned his gaze to the distant tree line, squinting, trying to discern what she had seen. Slowly, a new, dawning respect, tinged with a deep, professional curiosity, spread across his face. "You saw that from here," he muttered, a hint of awe in his voice. "I'll be damned, you really saw that?" "Situational awareness," Kira said with a slight shrug, her voice modesty yet firm. "My father taught me to watch everything, not just the target. To read the environment, not just the wind flag. To listen to the Earth's whispers." "Your father must be one hell of a shooter," Ryder said, a note of genuine admiration in his voice now, his earlier skepticism replaced by raw curiosity. "He was," Kira said quietly, a shadow of sadness crossing her face, a fleeting glimpse into a deeper loss. "Marine Scout Sniper. He passed away 3 years ago." Something profoundly shifted in Ryder's demeanor. His eyes widened slightly, a recognition dawning. "Tim Maxwell?" he asked, his voice low, almost reverent. "Fallujah? His shot at the Fallujah Hotel? That's legendary." Over a mile, through crosswinds that grounded helicopters that day. Didn't make the connection until now. "You're Tim Maxwell's daughter." As their hands clasped again, this time with a respectful, understanding grip, the atmosphere around them transformed. What had begun as a mere test, an outsider trying to prove herself against a champion, had transformed into something else entirely. She wasn't just some lucky private anymore. She was the daughter of a legend, carrying on a formidable legacy, walking in the footsteps of greatness. The respect in Ryder's eyes was now clear, a solid bridge built between them. The next morning, the qualification courses began in earnest. 20 hand-picked shooters, the absolute cream of the crop from across various military branches, converged, competing fiercely for 3 coveted spots on the AMU's elite precision team. The tests were grueling, designed to push every physical, mental, and technical limit to its absolute breaking point. Shooters were required to fire from unstable platforms after intense physical exertion, under simulated stress conditions, with severely limited time, and in challenging environmental scenarios, from blinding sun glare to sudden simulated rain squalls. It was a relentless gauntlet, designed to break all but the most exceptional. Day by day, competitors were systematically eliminated. Their names, once proudly displayed on the roster, were struck off, their dreams of joining the AMU team dissolving like mirages in the oppressive heat. The pressure was immense, a constant suffocating weight. But day by day, Kira remained. Her composure was unwavering, her performance consistently at the very top. She moved with a quiet, almost ethereal efficiency, her shots finding their mark with an unnerving precision, each one a testament to her absolute focus and mastery. She seemed impervious to the mental and physical strain that crumbled others. By the final day, only 5 remained: Kira, Master Sergeant Ryder, and 3 other experienced formidable shooters with multiple competition wins and combat tours under their belts. The tension was palpable, thick with the weight of expectation and exhaustion. This was it, the final hurdle, the ultimate proving ground. The final test, Colonel Hayes announced, his voice cutting through the heavy silence that hung over the range, is extreme long-distance precision under combat conditions. Target at 2,200 meters. The shot must be taken within 30 seconds of arrival at the firing position after running a grueling half-mile with full combat gear. 1 shot, 1 hit. This is what separates the excellent from the elite. This is where legends are truly forged. As they prepared, Ryder fell in beside Kira, his breathing steady, his gaze serious, a silent nod of camaraderie passing between them.
"You know they designed this final test because of you, right?"
he muttered, a hint of a smile playing on his lips, a shared understanding passing between them. They want to see if Desert Peak was reproducible. They want to see if it was a fluke, or if Tim Maxwell's daughter truly holds the future of long-range precision in her hands. Kira nodded, her expression grim but resolute. "I know." The pressure was immense, but it was a familiar friend, one she had known since childhood. "The guys are calling you One-Shot Vance behind your back," he added with a grin, a rare moment of genuine levity shared between 2 warriors. No pressure. When her turn came, Kira ran the grueling course with mechanical precision, her movements economical, her breathing controlled despite the exertion that burned in her lungs and muscles. Arriving at the firing position, breath heaving in rhythmic gasps, she dropped instantly into position, her body automatically finding the perfect prone stance, the rifle settling into her shoulder as if it were an extension of her own being. 28 seconds remained on the clock, ticking down inexorably, a relentless countdown to destiny. The world narrowed to the rifle, the swirling wind, and the distant target, a tiny speck against the vastness of the range. In that moment, the exhaustion faded, the immense pressure dissolved, and she felt her father's presence, not as a distant memory, but as a living force. His teachings, his patience, his unwavering belief in her abilities, all coalescing into a single profound, absolute focus. She fired. The confirmation came through instantly, a clear, unmistakable beep from the range computer. Hit. Cheers erupted from the observation area, a cacophony of relief, profound awe, and unbridled triumph. Kira rose to her feet, her chest still heaving slightly, to find Colonel Hayes approaching her with an outstretched hand, a wide, proud smile on his face, his eyes shining with profound satisfaction. "Congratulations, Private Vance," he said, his voice brimming with admiration, or should I say Specialist Vance. "Your promotion paperwork is already processed. You earned it, every single inch of it." Behind him, even the most skeptical AMU veterans were applauding, their earlier doubts replaced by open, undeniable admiration. In just 1 week, Kira Vance had gone from a dismissed observer, an unqualified female, to a respected peer, an undeniable force within the elite ranks. Her journey was just beginning. 6 months passed in a blur of intense training, relentless competition, and rapid advancement. Specialist Kira Vance, now a recognized name within the elite circles of the Army Marksmanship Unit, had become an undeniable fixture. Her natural talent, once a raw, untamed force, had blossomed under the rigorous practice and unparalleled professional coaching at Evergreen Training Center. She racked up wins in internal competitions, setting new standards in precision and speed, and consistently pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible in training exercises. Her reputation, forged in the crucible of Desert Peak, now preceded her. A quiet ripple of awe that followed her through the ranges and halls of the AMU. She was no longer just the one-shot Vance from a viral range video. She was a proven, consistent, and invaluable asset. On a crisp autumn morning, the kind that brought a welcome chill to the humid Alabama air, Kira found herself summoned to Colonel Hayes's office. As she entered, she was surprised to find not only the colonel, his usual stoic demeanor softened by a hint of admiration, but also two men in civilian attire. Their bearing, however, was unmistakably military despite their impeccably tailored business suits. One was silver-haired with penetrating blue eyes that seemed to miss nothing, the other younger, with a quiet intensity that spoke of deep operational experience. "Specialist Vance reporting as ordered, sir," she said, saluting crisply. "At ease, Specialist," Colonel Hayes replied, gesturing to a chair. "These gentlemen are from JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command. They've been following your progress with great interest." The older of the two men, Director Caldwell, extended a hand. His grip was firm, direct. "Kira Vance, we've been thoroughly impressed with your record here. Your recent performances, they're beyond exceptional. We believe you possess a unique, almost unprecedented ability." His voice was calm, but his eyes held an intensity that made Kira subtly shift her weight, sensing the profound shift her career was about to take. "Thank you, sir," Kira replied, shaking his hand, feeling a strange, potent tension in the room. This wasn't just another congratulatory meeting. Caldwell got straight to the point, his voice dropping slightly, becoming more confidential. "How familiar are you with Task Force Phoenix, Specialist?" Kira's pulse quickened. "Task Force Phoenix?" The name itself was whispered about even among elite military circles, a phantom unit whose existence was rarely acknowledged outside the highest echelons of command. It was a specialized unit that handled the most sensitive, most critical, and often most impossible long-range precision operations. Their missions were classified at the highest levels, their operators ghosts moving in the shadows, their successes rarely attributed, their failures never known. It was the pinnacle, the ultimate test. "Only by reputation, sir," Kira responded, her voice carefully modulated, betraying nothing of the sudden surge of adrenaline. "Good. Then you understand the level of discretion required," Caldwell stated, his eyes unwavering. He nodded to Colonel Hayes, who then slid a thick, heavily redacted folder across his desk toward Kira. "Task Force Phoenix is assembling a specialized team for a high-priority operation," Caldwell continued, his voice calm, professional, yet hinting at the profound weight of his words. "Your unique abilities have been specifically requested. This isn't standard AMU competition work, Specialist. This is an operational deployment, real-world application." Kira opened the folder. Inside was a transfer order with most details redacted, replaced by black ink, alongside a brief, stark mission outline that sent a chill down her spine despite the warmth of the office. Operation Shadow Peak. Target acquisition and elimination at extreme range. Estimated deployment 72 hours. Location classified. Risk assessment high. "This is," Kira began, struggling to find the right words, the reality of it hitting her with a sudden visceral force. Not a training exercise, not a competition. This isn't a training exercise, Agent Donovan. Caldwell's younger colleague spoke for the first time, his voice sharp, decisive. This is a real-world application of your skills, specialist. The mission requires someone who can make an impossible shot in unpredictable mountain conditions. Someone like you, Caldwell added, his gaze holding hers. Colonel Hayes leaned forward, his voice softer, offering a choice. This assignment is completely voluntary, Vance. Your place here at AMU is secure regardless of your decision. We value you immensely here, but this is a chance to truly serve at a different level. Kira stared at the papers, her mind racing. She thought of her father. How many times had he been called for missions like this, shrouded in secrecy, demanding the impossible? How many times had he sat across from men like Caldwell and Donovan, being asked to do things that would never appear in any public record, actions that would reshape geopolitical landscapes in silence? She remembered his quiet intensity, his unwavering sense of duty, the invisible weight he carried. This was it, the true test, the culmination of everything he had taught her. "When do I leave, sir?" she asked, her voice firm, resolute, without a hint of hesitation. Immediately, Caldwell replied, a flicker of approval in his eyes. "Pack light. Everything you need will be provided at the staging area." 24 hours later, Kira found herself on a military transport plane, its engines humming a low, steady drone as it sliced through the night sky. She was headed to an undisclosed location, deep in a rugged, hostile mountain range. Around her sat 6 other operators from Task Force Phoenix. Unlike the competitive, boisterous world of the AMU, these men moved with the quiet efficiency of predators. Minimal words, maximum awareness. Every gesture was deliberate, every glance held a purpose. They were a different breed, forged in a different kind of fire, men of action and few words. Their team leader, Captain Harris, a man with a lean build and eyes that missed nothing, briefed them during the flight. Satellite imagery flickered across a large screen at the front of the cabin. "Our target is Viktor Novikov," Harris stated, his voice calm and precise, his finger tapping the screen. "Arms dealer, supplying terrorist cells across 3 continents. He thinks he's safe in his mountain compound, surrounded by heavily armed guards, protected by extreme terrain. Intelligence indicates he'll be on site for only 36 hours. This is our window, a tight one, but our best." The screen zoomed in on the compound, a luxurious modern fortress nestled deep within a remote mountain valley, surrounded by jagged peaks on all sides, a truly formidable stronghold. "Previous attempts at close-quarters elimination have failed," Harris continued, a grim line appearing between his brows. "Too many guards, too many escape routes, too much collateral risk. We need a single shot from outside his security perimeter." Harris pointed to a distant, imposing ridgeline on the satellite map, miles away from the compound. "That means a firing position here, with a shot distance of approximately 2,850 meters through variable mountain wind conditions." One of the operators, a burly man with a thick beard and eyes that had seen too much, whistled softly. "That's right at the edge of possible, Cap. Even for us. That's why we have Specialist Vance," Harris replied, nodding toward Kira, a flicker of confidence in his eyes. Her shot at Desert Peak proved this is well within her capabilities. She's the best long-range asset we have, period. The team's primary sniper, Sergeant Briggs, a man of quiet intensity and meticulous precision, studied Kira with narrowed eyes. His gaze was assessing, analytical, searching for any weakness, any doubt. "With all due respect, sir," Briggs said, his voice measured, "controlled range conditions are one thing, combat deployment is another. Has she even been tested under pressure? Real pressure?" "I have," Kira said quietly, her voice cutting through the hum of the aircraft, meeting Briggs's challenging gaze without flinching. "Just not the kind you're thinking of. The kind where going home hungry isn't just a metaphor." Briggs raised an eyebrow, a flicker of curiosity. "Care to elaborate, Specialist?" "My father was Wilderness Scout Corps," Kira began, her voice steady, a distant memory in her eyes. "Every hunting trip, every shooting lesson was conducted like a military operation. He'd wake me before dawn, make me hike miles in freezing conditions through the Colorado Front Range, then quiz me on wind patterns while my fingers were too numb to feel the trigger. If I missed, we didn't eat. Hunger was a very real consequence. Failure meant going home empty-handed, knowing you couldn't provide for your family." She met Briggs's gaze steadily. "It may not be combat, Sergeant, but I know pressure, the pressure of necessity, the pressure of survival, the pressure of life and death, just different stakes." A small, almost imperceptible smile tugged at the corner of Briggs's mouth. His eyes held a new respect. "Fair enough," he conceded, "but this mission has other complications. We're looking at a 60-hour insertion hike through treacherous mountain terrain, limited supplies, and hostile territory. Can you handle that? You're not used to this kind of ground pounding." "I grew up in the Colorado backcountry," Kira replied, a hint of pride in her voice. "I've spent more nights under stars than under roofs. I can handle the hike, Sergeant. Just point me in the direction of the target." Captain Harris interrupted, a note of finality in his voice. "She wouldn't be here if we had doubts, Briggs. She's been cleared at the highest levels. Trust the asset." Briggs nodded, seemingly satisfied. Then, unexpectedly, he extended his hand to Kira. "Looking forward to seeing you work, Vance. That shot at Desert Peak, legendary." The ice broken, the team spent the remainder of the flight reviewing mission details, contingency plans, and extraction protocols. Kira absorbed everything, her mind a sponge, asking precise questions about terrain elevation changes, micro-weather conditions, visibility factors, and potential escape routes for the target. Her analytical mind, combined with her intuitive understanding of the natural world, allowed her to process an astounding amount of information, building a mental map of the entire operational area. 36 hours later, the team was deep in hostile mountain territory. The air was thin, biting cold, and the extreme elevation made breathing difficult, a constant strain on the lungs. They navigated treacherous passes, narrow trails clinging precariously to sheer cliff faces, and dense, unforgiving brush. But Kira kept pace with the seasoned operators, never complaining, never slowing them down, her mountain-honed endurance proving itself in every weary step. Her focus remained sharp, her eyes constantly scanning the terrain, reading the subtle signs of the wild. On the third day, as dawn painted the jagged peaks with streaks of crimson and gold, they reached their designated observation point, a sheltered outcropping. High on the ridge, offering a clear, unobstructed line of sight to Novikov's compound, exactly 2,850 meters away. Perfect timing. Harris whispered, checking his watch, his voice barely audible above the howling wind. "Intel says Novikov arrives in 3 hours. We set up now. Confirm position, then wait." The tension was palpable, a live wire running through the team, taut and ready. While the rest of the team meticulously established security perimeters, set up communications arrays, and prepared for a long, cold vigil, Sergeant Briggs and Kira began to prepare the shooting position. The specially modified rifle, a highly customized Mk-22 advanced sniper rifle with custom ammunition, was assembled with meticulous care. Each component clicked into place with practiced precision. This was the moment of truth, the culmination of all their efforts, the culmination of Kira's entire life's training. "Wind's going to be your biggest challenge, Vance," Briggs observed, his voice low, his eyes scanning the valley through his spotting scope, a complex web of invisible forces. "See how it's swirling through those 3 peaks? Creates a funnel effect, completely unpredictable to standard calculation methods. This is where most calculations break down, where algorithms fail." Kira studied the pattern through her own scope, her mind already at work, sifting through the chaos. "Not unpredictable, Sergeant," she corrected softly, her gaze unwavering. "Just complex. Look at the tree movement on those slopes. There's a pattern, a 3-part oscillation. Wind hits the north face, rebounds to the east slope, then cycles back through the center. It's a dance, not chaos." Briggs stared at her, then back through his scope, his brow furrowed in concentration. He watched, waited, and then a slow, dawning realization spread across his face. "I'll be damned," he muttered, shaking his head in admiration. "You're right, it's subtle, but it's there. How in the hell did you see that? It's like you're seeing the air itself." "My father taught me," Kira agreed softly, her gaze distant, a fleeting memory of her childhood. "This reminds me of the Colorado Front Range back home. Similar wind patterns in spring. If you grew up learning to hunt in those valleys, you either saw it or you went home hungry. The mountains teach you patience and vision." The unspoken implication hung in the air. For Kira, observation wasn't just a skill, it was survival, deeply ingrained. Briggs simply nodded, a silent acknowledgement of her extraordinary gift, and then turned his full attention to supporting her. The stage was set for the impossible shot, a silent ballet of precision and perception. As the hours passed, tension mounted in the cold, thin air of the mountain observation point. The team huddled, their breaths misting, their eyes glued to their high-powered optics, observing Viktor Novikov's compound. Intelligence confirmed Novikov's arrival, a procession of armored vehicles snaking up the winding mountain road, a clear sign of his paranoia and wealth. Through their scopes, they watched the arms dealer move about his luxurious compound, a figure perpetually surrounded by heavily armed guards, always in motion, never still. The sheer number of his security detail was staggering, a living fortress around him. "We need him still for at least 5 seconds, Sergeant Briggs muttered into his comms, his voice a low growl, and preferably near a window, not through solid reinforced walls. Captain Harris's voice crackled over their secure comms, cutting through the silence. "Intel update. Novikov has scheduled a video call in his office in exactly 17 minutes. That's our window. A small one, but it's the best we'll get." Briggs frowned. "His office has bulletproof glass, Captain. Thick stuff? Not at the joints, Sergeant." Kira countered instantly, her voice calm, her eyes still glued to the structural details of the compound she had studied meticulously during the flight. If he stands directly in front of the east window, there's a vulnerable seam where the panels meet. It's a tiny target, but it's there, a needle thread. Briggs stared at her, then back through his scope. Good eye, Vance. Very good eye. But that's going to make an already impossible shot even tougher. You'll need to thread a needle at nearly 3 kilometers through a shifting wind tunnel, hitting a target the size of a playing card. Just get me the wind data, Sergeant, Kira replied, her focus narrowing, her entire being contracting around the task at hand. The external world faded, replaced by the rhythm of her own breath. The minutes ticked by with excruciating slowness, each second a heavy beat in the mountain silence. Finally, movement in the compound. Novikov entered his opulent office, flanked by 2 burly bodyguards. The team watched as he dismissed the guards, closed the heavy door, and walked to his massive desk, perfectly positioned in front of the east window. He gestured for his video call to begin, unknowingly sealing his fate. Target acquired, Briggs whispered, his voice tight with anticipation. Ind is variable, currently 12 knots from the northwest, shifting to northeast every 40 to 50 seconds, oscillating. It's that 3-part pattern you saw. Kira made minute, almost imperceptible adjustments to her rifle, her fingers dancing across the dials, her mind a supercomputer processing the complex wind patterns. Her breathing slowed, deepening, becoming a steady rhythmic cadence. Her heartbeat became a calm, deliberate thump against her ribs. The world contracted until only she, the rifle, and the distant, unsuspecting target existed. Breathe, squeeze, follow through, she whispered, her father's mantra, a ghostly whisper from the Colorado mountains, guiding her. She waited, watching the wind indicators, feeling the subtle shifts in air pressure against her cheek, timing the oscillation she had identified. Then, at precisely the right moment in the wind cycle, that infinitesimal window of alignment, she squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked against her shoulder, a powerful recoil that she absorbed effortlessly. Through her scope, she watched as the bullet, a tiny silver projectile, traveled the enormous distance across the valley, a journey that seemed to take an eternity. Then, impact. Novikov staggered, a surprised look on his face, then collapsed, slumping forward onto his desk, unmoving. Mission accomplished. Target down, Briggs confirmed, his voice hushed, tinged with a profound awe. Clean shot right through the seam, just as planned. A perfect shot, Vance. Absolutely perfect. Within minutes, the team was breaking down their position, every movement precise, practiced, and preparing for rapid extraction. As Kira meticulously disassembled her rifle, each component clicked back into its case. Briggs placed a gloved hand on her shoulder. "That shot, Vance," he said, his voice low, filled with an unspoken respect. At that distance, through those wind conditions, hitting a target the size of a playing card, that wasn't just skill, that was art. Pure art. Your father would have been incredibly proud. Captain Harris's voice crackled over the comms. Extraction in 15 minutes, mission accomplished. Well done, Phoenix team. Truly outstanding. As they moved out, melting back into the shadows of the mountains, Kira felt a strange mix of emotions, a profound pride in her skill, a somber acceptance of the life she had taken, and a deep, quiet certainty that her father would have understood both. 3 days later, back on U.S. soil, Kira found herself once again in Colonel Hayes's office at Evergreen Training Center. This time, Director Caldwell sat beside the colonel, a thick folder in his hands, an undeniable air of satisfaction about him. Operation Shadow Peak was a complete success, Caldwell said, without preamble, his eyes shining with approval. Your shot has already become legendary within certain circles. Specialist Vance, the highest levels are aware. It's being called the ghost shot. Colonel Hayes smiled, a rare, genuine expression. What he means is you've impressed some very important people, Vance. People who make things happen. People who define national security at the highest levels. Caldwell slid the folder across the desk. This is a formal invitation to join Task Force Phoenix as a permanent operator. Full classification clearance, specialized training, and deployment with the best precision teams in the world. It's a commitment, a calling, but it's where the impossible becomes routine. Kira opened the folder, skimming the contents with growing amazement. This wasn't just a transfer. This was entry into a world her father had only hinted at. A world where the most elite operators took on the most critical, often hidden, missions. It was her calling, now fully realized, a legacy inherited and fiercely earned. There's one more thing, Caldwell added, a slight smirk playing on his lips. Given your exceptional performance, we've expedited your promotion. Congratulations, Sergeant Vance. As Kira left the office with her new orders, her new rank, she found Master Sergeant Ryder waiting in the hallway, a knowing grin on his face. Heard you were back, Sergeant Vance, he said, using her new rank with deliberate respect, his eyes gleaming with pride. Also heard rumors about what you did out there. The ghost shot, they're calling it. Task Force Phoenix, huh? Moving up in the world. Really moving up. News travels fast, Sergeant Ryder, Kira observed, a small smile touching her lips. Only the impressive news, Sergeant Vance, Ryder corrected, extending his hand. His grip was firm, sincere, a bond of mutual respect forged in shared challenge. Your father would be proud, Sergeant Vance, very proud. As they shook hands, Kira felt a profound sense of completion, a circle closing. From the little girl learning to shoot in Colorado's Front Range to the underestimated recruit at Desert Peak, to now Sergeant Kira Vance, an elite operator with Task Force Phoenix. Her journey, once marked by quiet struggle, was now defined by undeniable triumph. And somewhere, she was certain, Sergeant Thorne was hearing about her promotion and seething with regret for the day he dismissed her as just a girl with a clipboard. A few days later, an anonymous military account sent her an encrypted message. Former instructor demoted after investigation reveals pattern of discrimination. Sergeant Thorne, following his reassignment to Horizon Forward Operating Base, was the subject of a comprehensive investigation. His application to return to Desert Peak as a senior instructor was denied, and he has been further demoted to corporal. The final paragraph quoted an unnamed senior officer. The days of judging soldiers by anything other than their performance and character are over in today's military. Justice, it seemed, had a way of completing its cycle, even if it took time. Outro, what an incredible journey we've just witnessed. From the scorching sands where she was dismissed to the icy peaks where she made history, Kira Vance redefined what's possible. Her story isn't just about a remarkable shot. It's a testament to the quiet strength that defies judgment, the intuitive genius that surpasses technology, and the unyielding spirit that turns contempt into triumph. It's a powerful reminder that true capability knows no gender, no rank, and no limits. What resonated most with you in Kira's journey? Did her quiet resolve inspire you, or did Sergeant Thorne's ultimate downfall bring a satisfying sense of justice? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from you. If Kira's story left you speechless, give this video a huge thumbs up. For more inspiring tales that touch the heart and uplift the spirit, be sure to subscribe to Heart Tales. Thank you for watching. Don't go anywhere yet. Explore more incredible stories by checking out the videos appearing on your screen right now. Until next time, keep listening to the whispers of courage that shape our world.